Thank you for joining us tonight on Promising Me Unleashed. November is National Family Caregiver Month. This month is one that was recognized by our government as a time to recognize those family members who are caring for loved ones who otherwise cannot care for themselves. Our guest is a wife, a mother. She holds a bachelor's degree of science in music education from Hampton University. She also holds a master's of library science, a program through the University of Maryland. She is also a musician in her own right. She plays the keyboard, she sings, she directs a choir. She is full of wisdom, knowledge, talent, but she is also a caregiver. And she is here to share her story of how she is going through, has triumphed over, and finds the joy despite the circumstances in caring for her loved ones. I'd like to welcome Arie Gray to Promising Me Unleashed. Arie, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a wonderful pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.
You are more than welcome. I feel like the privileged one today. When my husband shared with me that you had written a book, and as he read the book, he enjoyed it. And I wanted to make sure I read the book as well. But in reading just the portions that I read, you are in between, as we call the baby boomer stage, where you are in between both caring for your children and then having also cared for your parents. And as we look at National Family Caregiver Month, you were the perfect person for us to sit down and have this conversation about caregiving. So I'd like for you to just share a portion of your story, how it all came to be. And then, we'll just talk a little bit more about where you are right now in the process of caring for your loved one.
Well, thank you so much. We do have 3 children. Our son is grown. He doesn't live with us, but our daughters are both special needs young ladies, Jasmine and Jessica. And we took on the responsibility of caring for my dad. My father passed in 2010, but my mother passed suddenly after the birth of our twin daughters. And after that, Dad lived by himself for a while, but we started picking up on the fact that there were some issues with him in terms of memory. And one thing led to another, and diagnoses took place, and we discovered that he had Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Wow.
And so therefore, we had to make decisions as to whether or not he needed to be in a facility or we would take care of him. And my husband, God bless him, he felt as if that we take care of our own. And we took that level of responsibility. We moved Dad in with us. So therefore, we were taking care of him and taking care, of course, our daughters, Jasmine and Jessica, with their disabilities as well. Later on in life, though, he really got much worse as the diseases progressed. We needed additional help. So it ended up being a small team of us. A very good friend of ours that had some capabilities to be there with Dad. One of my sister-in-laws helped out. She has some nursing care experience, my husband and myself. However, as his daughter, I was his primary care provider. So that was a lot, working a full-time job, 2 churches, being a choir director, of course, and of course, continuing to take care of Jasmine and Jessica. Yes.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about what that process was like for you.
It was very difficult. This was my second husband, and we had just gotten married, only to a short time later find out that I was expecting twins. And at age 39, it just developed into a very difficult pregnancy. I went into preterm labor, almost lost them, and had to be on bed rest, and finally I finally delivered the girls. They were in the neonatal intensive care unit. I still had complications from having gone through the pregnancy and the delivery. And my mother died suddenly of a blood clot a week after I had had the babies. They were still in the neonatal intensive care unit. I had been in the bed so long, I could not even walk at this point. So I was in a wheelchair at her funeral.
Oh, wow.
And it was very devastating. And she was buried, and 2 days later, Jasmine and Jessica came home from the hospital. They were still premature babies because they still were premature. And we began taking care of them. I was trying to recover from not only the physical trauma of what I had gone through, but I felt like I had lost my best friend because my mother had also helped to take care of me when I was bedridden. So that was a lot that was going on with a 6-year-old son and these 2 little preemies and a husband that was married to someone who at this point he did not recognize because my joy was gone and only God restored that joy.
Yeah. And you know, and you're right about it. I failed to mention this at the beginning. I wanted to share your book, and you see I have it marked because I'm still reading your book, Our Journey of God's Blessings, a Special Need Family Remembers. This book really speaks to what that time frame looked like for you, and you write about it so vividly in sharing the emotion of how you felt having lost your mother at a time where for most young folks, you know, your mom is there for you when those babies come home. They're like the caregivers to you and the babies. There's such a joy and a love there.
That's right.
And to have that just kind of snatched away. You write a little about that in a way that really touched my heart. But that feeling of loss and dismay, but yet still having to go on because you have a family who are still looking to you for support and who still needed you during that time. So to go on, just tell us a little bit more about how you came through that piece and kind of moved on.
Well, as I mentioned in the book, God ministered to me through total strangers. First, people that had experienced the sudden death of loved ones with the same condition my mother had. And then secondly, in a gentle way, he sent total strangers to me that I interfaced with that had lost their mothers when they were children. And after a while, I said, I got it. You're reminding me I had her for 39 years. And I was blessed to have a wonderful mother. So I had to rebuild my faith in him because initially my faith was almost destroyed by that. And as he continued to show his love and minister to me, I had to forgive him, but ask him to forgive me. I had to forgive myself because the forgiveness was all around. I didn't need really to forgive him. I needed to forgive myself. And I needed him to forgive me for not falling apart, but for not completely trusting him. But I began to really rebuild my faith, trust in him, and he continued to do things supernaturally in terms of showing me things and blessing me. And then, of course, as this process is it continuing and I'm getting stronger physically because I've been through so much, emotionally and spiritually, we had to deal with the enormity of finding out that Jasmine and Jessica were not quote unquote normal, that they had issues. So now that the journey took another turn, that we had to find out what was wrong with them. Why were they not developing properly? And that was a whole nother piece to the journey.
Mhm.
But God was so good, because what he did was he showed us so many times who he was,
Mhm.
using their challenges and
Mhm.
using their disabilities. As a caregiver, it was very difficult because the level of responsibility was so much.
Oh yeah.
But
It-
God got us through it.
yeah, I think what I loved as I was reading your book, you had so many God encounters. Um,
Yes.
the crossing of paths of people that were right there at the time that you needed them,
Yeah.
to kind of give you some direction. Talk a little bit about that, because I love the stories that pertain to when you were trying to figure out what to do with them for school, and how you were sitting and you ended up in the same place, I think, as the superintendent or.
What happened? Yes. What happened was we had tried so many things on our own,
Mhm.
because we knew that Jasmine and Jessica needed to be in a private setting.
Mhm.
The public school, unfortunately, was not able to give them what they needed.
Mhm.
And we tried everything that we could.
Yeah.
But one Sunday, the Holy Spirit told me to go to my home church.
Mm.
And we did. And the Lord so fixed it, as my mom used to say. We
Mhm.
were sitting in the nursery after church, and our state senator was sitting beside me.
The senator, yes.
Yes. And Senator Lawler, she and her husband were members of the church. I had not seen them in a long time. She
Mhm.
asked how the girls were doing. I told her what was going on, and she said, "That's unacceptable." And she proceeded to give me contact information and help us. And we followed her advice. We did the contacts that she suggested, but then the Lord just took care of the rest of it.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, because of being obedient to the little voice that told me to go to my home church on that
Mhm.
particular Sunday,
Mhm.
that's why it's so important to listen to the voice of the Lord and
Yes.
to know what his voice sounds like.
Mhm.
The rest is history. All the things lined up together, and Jasmine and Jessica ended up being accepted at the Ivy Mount School in Rockville, Maryland.
Mhm.
And we did not have to pay one dime
Mm.
for their education.
Amazing.
Not one.
Amazing. Wow.
And not one child, but two.
Ew. Amazing.
Yes, it is.
Amazing.
And I write about this in the book, The
Mhm.
Miracle of Ivy Mount, because of all the things that happened that led us to that point.
Mhm.
Looking back over our journey, it reminds us that we are never alone,
Never.
especially if we put our trust in Him.
I was just so astounded by that. I just sat there and I was like, these are God encounters. People may not
Yes,
necessarily believe it, but our steps are ordered.
yes, they are.
If you allow, God to order your steps, even something that might seem simple as going to your home church, you know,
Right.
but who knew but him
Who knew
that those two, that one encounter would result in your children being where they needed to
it
be
to be?
to get what they needed. And you talk about other encounters in the book as well. I know you mentioned something about the 9/11 event, trying to get the girls from their school being so far away,
Yes,
and
yes,
how I mean, I just sat there in awe when I started reading, and I said, wow. And I think what amazed me is the fact that I remember, even in our own personal story, those kinds of encounters. Um,
yes.
Nothing happens by accident.
That is correct. And when I think back to Ivy Mount, of course, that was before my husband was a pastor. We were visiting churches, and for the Lord to tell me to do that,
Mhm.
too, the fact that He not only provided a way for their education. But our concern was the school was so far away.
Right.
My home church's choir, which I'm also was also co-director for, we just happened to have a concert, in Rockville, Maryland, some months before 911. And the only place that we had available, and I don't want to tell too much because it's in the book,
Right.
but
this book is juicy. You're going to want to read it.
I
You're
don't
going to
want
want
to
to get this. This is going to be a part of your library. Trust me.
it really is, because it's God's book. I consider this to be God's book. And the amazing thing about what he's done with writing this book, I never planned on writing a book. I'm a musician. I'm, instructor, things like that. But it amazed me because it even helped to increase my faith.
Yes.
And it built me up for 1 year ago today, when we received a family diagnosis that was devastating. God had already prepared me by writing the book to remind me of all the things that he had done, so that I would not be discouraged, but to know that my help cometh from the Lord.
Yes.
And he has done just that.
Yes. Talk about, I know we didn't finish the story about what happened at the school on that 911.
That's right. Let's go back
there real quick. And then I want us to go back to where you were going, because it's a very important point here.
The couple that we met at the church in Rockville ended up being licensed daycare providers. So after meeting them and bonding with them, we realized we had a backup, but we didn't know 911 was coming. So then the summer right before 911, they invited us over. We had dinner. The girls got a chance to see them, bond with them a little bit, meet them really, really. 2 days before 911, Carol, who is the lady that I'm talking about, and her husband, Carol said that the Lord spoke to her mind and said, go to our home church, which is where our choir sings. They had never been to our church before. So they followed the boys. They came to our home church. They sat with Jasmine and Jessica and my dad. Carol even held the girls periodically in her lap. So they got a chance to even experience her even more in terms of bonding. This is the Sunday before 911. 2 days later, 911 happens. We cannot get to Rockville. We have to call Carol for her to go to Ivy Mount and get Jasmine and Jessica. Jasmine and Jessica had now just seen Carol 2 days before that. So she was not a stranger to them.
Yes.
They were already on the list to be able to be picked up if it was in case of an emergency. And Jasmine and Jessica just went with Carol without a problem. And they had a wonderful time.
Awesome.
God had designed all of that. And we had no idea, like everyone else, that 911 was getting ready to take place. And our children, he took the time.
Yes.
That is the amazing thing about the Lord. He took the time to orchestrate everything so that our children were taken care of.
Yes. And that they would be comfortable.
And they'd be comfortable. They actually did not want to leave. When my husband finally went to get them that evening, they had been having such a wonderful time. They really didn't even want to leave. And that was just nothing but God.
Yes.
And we were just so blessed.
Amazing.
We were so blessed. In fact, Carol's husband is a photographer. And he actually, the picture that you see on the front of the book, is one that he took about 6 months before my book, and he did not know I was writing a book. I
Wow.
reached out to him, and they had gone out west, and he'd been taking pictures. And Carol even told me, she said, I didn't even know why he was taking these pictures, and he didn't even know why he was taking these pictures. And he gave me one of
Amazing.
these pictures for the book.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yes,
So
that was
talk
so
to us
good.
a little bit about what happened a year ago today.
A year ago today, we were reeling from the enormity of our son's cancer diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
I've been actually thanking God because a year ago, I was very sick with an upper respiratory infection. In fact,
Wow.
Halloween, a couple, I was in urgent care for 8 hours because it
Wow.
was that crowded last year. But we were reeling from Jeffrey's diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey was diagnosed with um, Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Mm-hmm.
stage 4,
Wow.
in 3 places in his body at age 34.
Mm.
So 1 year ago, our son had just gotten the diagnosis, and I realized that the Lord had prepared me for this by
Mm-hmm.
writing the book. And he communicated through 2 people who called me out of the blue, did
Mm-hmm.
not know about Jeffrey,
Mm-hmm.
and said, God told me to call you and tell you everything's going to be all right.
Wow.
And Jeffrey began the following month chemotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
aggressive chemotherapy every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's all right.
Wow.
He's cancer free.
Our journey.
Yes. And God is still blessing. He's still leading. He's still guiding. I'm still a caregiver. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still helping my daughters doing their SSI, and they live with us, and
Mm-hmm.
they both work. They have part-time jobs, and
Yeah.
we
How old
still,
are they?
they're 29.
Wow. Okay.
So as a caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
it's not been there, done that. It's been there doing
Doing
that.
that. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot because it's a lot of responsibility. You're still having to help people. You're still having to think for people. You're still
Yes.
having to manage medical appointments and dental appointments as
Mm-hmm.
well as your own.
Right.
Uh, there's a lot of things that you do, and then as special needs parents, you have concerns. We have to make provisions for their future.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So there are ongoing things that take place. I
Mm-hmm.
will say, looking back, especially when we were taking care of my father, it was very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's why, as a caregiver, it's important to sometimes give yourself breaks. We would
Yes.
check my dad into. There was a home that was run by a lady that she had other seniors that were there, and
Mm-hmm.
that was wonderful because that gave us a break. It gave Dad a break. He was around other people his age, and it's so important as a caregiver that you understand that you have to take care of yourself because so much falls on your shoulders in
Yes.
terms of responsibility. It's
Mm-hmm.
very easy to get yourself in a situation that health wise it's not good for you.
Exactly. Exactly. Ari, we didn't talk about this part, but
Mhm.
um, music, as a
Yes,
music major, how much has that been a part of your healing or your therapy?
it has been a great part.
Mm-hmm.
During this time period, I have actually written a lot of music. I even produced a gospel CD,
Mm-hmm.
which is entitled Miracle of Love.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote some of the songs that are on the CD as well. It's still available online. If you go to Amazon, you can get the audio files from it, believe it or not.
Awesome.
And Jasmine and Jessica actually sing background vocals for one of the songs. It's called A Father's Love. and my father loved it before he passed. But yes, music ministry. And as I continued through the journey, that helped to also keep me anchored.
Yes.
And my testimony and my journey helped my ministry in music and helped people to understand that God is awesome.
Yes.
And right now, our daughters are praise dancers. I sing a song, as you all well know, The Goodness of God, and the praise dance to that as well.
Wow.
If I didn't, so music ministry is indeed, has been, and continues to be an important part of who I am. And the Lord has blessed me through that music ministry as well, not only writing and singing, but one time in my life, I actually had an outer body experience. When I was going through actually becoming closer to the Lord, I was singing the song, Oh, It Is Jesus. And all of a sudden, I felt something come inside of me, and I hit some notes, full voice, in a high soprano that I had never done in my entire life.
Wow.
And I realized that the Spirit had actually sung that portion of the song for me, and then it went back out. So yes, that's not in the book. That just, the Lord just brought that to my mind.
Wow.
That God just blessed me with that.
I am thoroughly honored to have you as our guest this month for National Family Caregiver Month, but we know that this caregiving is something that happens all year around. And there are things like this lovely book, and I'm just going to show it one more good time, because these are the things that help other people go through the process of caregiving, sharing your story. So I just want to say thank you so much for being our guest on Promising Me Unleashed. Are there any other words that you could share with the caregiver to help them while they go through the process of caring for their loved one?
Well, again, make sure that you're in tune with how you feel. Stay up on all of your own medical needs. Make sure you get your physicals. Make sure that you get your necessary exams. From a mental health standpoint, if you are having challenges, seek help. I found out and I learned, if you need to have any kind of therapy or intervention or whatever it is, support, that's a sign of strength. It is not a sign of weakness. Let people know how you feel. I was blessed, I am still blessed to have a wonderful husband who has stood by my side every step of the way. As a special needs parent, I have found that statistically the divorce rate is very high. It's higher than other couples, because there are some husbands that will leave their wives because they cannot handle children with disabilities.
Yes.
So I am grateful to the Lord. I'm grateful for having a wonderful husband. But again, my advice for caregiving, take care of your own physical, spiritual, and emotional needs. Know that God is with you.
Yeah.
Please, having a church family I had two, and that was a blessing.
Yes.
Because they helped us on this journey.
Yes.
Both of our home churches. They helped us. Sargent Memorial Presbyterian Church and First Baptist Maryfield, my husband's home church. They helped us through this journey. They helped us through with our children and family. Our family members helped us a lot. But again, that responsibility still falls on you.
Yes.
Pray, trust God, know that it is going to get better, but have a personal relationship with Him, and He will, as Scripture says, acknowledge Him in all thy ways, not some of your ways, but all your ways. He will direct your path. And little voice, which you will see over and over again in my book, something told me to do this, Something told me to do that. The little voice would speak to me, that still quiet voice, and help me during this process. I don't know how people do it without the Lord, but I know in my case that if it had not been for him, I don't know if I would not be sitting here today. And I certainly would not have written a book and shared my story, which I know right now is helping other people.
How can people, one, get a copy of this awesome book? And how can people get in contact with you? I'm sure that you probably, in between caring, have some time and opportunity to sit with other people to share your story. So how can people get the book? And then how can people also reach out to you?
Well, the book is on Barnes & Noble online. It's also on Amazon. And so you can go to either one of those venues and order the book there. I also am on Facebook as Arie Gray Author. You can go there as well. And I also have an email address that I can share with you as well. And you have that information.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
So anyway, that's how you can get in contact with me. And I would love to be able to come and talk to your church or a book group, a reading. It doesn't matter. I would love to be able to meet you. And once you have my email address, please send me an email and I will respond. I just received one a couple of days ago from a gentleman that I met in the post office. I don't even know what he looks like, but he actually ordered my book and read it and reached out to me about how it had blessed his life.
Arie Gray Author?
Yes.
Author, AUTHOR, says that there's going to be more books coming from your loins. So I so much look forward to reading more of that, and also obtaining a copy of your music. Hopefully the music one day will accompany the book. I don't know how we do those together, but we'll see what God has in store for you going forward. But again, I want to say thank you so much. And thank you for being our guest on Promise in Me Unleashed.
Thank you so much for having me, Sister Jacqueline. I am so honored and so blessed.